Boldwood presents How to Be Fabulous, written by Carmen Reid and read by Julie Maisie. Author's reminder: Annie Valentine is back. For everyone in need of a little refresh, here's an introduction to the characters from the series. Annie, our heroine, 40-something mother and fashion makeover queen. After many years as the top personal shopper at London fashion heaven The Store, she's currently star presenter on popular TV show How to Be Fabulous. She's the eternal optimist, on a quest to make every day and every outfit just that little bit better. Lauren, Annie's oldest daughter, now a young adult out in the world, currently working at fashion label Perfect Dress in New York. Fiercely opinionated and independent, artistic and so into fashion, Lauren looks like her late father, Roddy, with his raven black hair and steely blue eyes. Owen, Annie's oldest son, now an 18-year-old about to set off for uni. Tall and gangly, with his mother's lighter hair, Owen has a big sense of humour and is totally into all music. He plays violin, drums, glockenspiel, guitar, electric and acoustic. Ed, Annie's huge-hearted second husband, is sporty, outdoorsy, scruffy, and tragically couldn't care less about clothes. He's head of music at St Vincent's School, plays violin, guitar, loves every kind of music, and is a fantastic dad to all 4 children. Minette and Max, Ed and Annie's twins, are adorable when they're not fighting, screaming, or having a complete meltdown, obviously. They're walking, talking 4-year-old preschoolers in need of a lot of parental time and energy. Svetlana Wisniewski-Roscoff, the fabulous multi-millionairess, former wife of many important men, including oil baron Igor Wisniewski. A former beauty queen from Ukraine, she has her own house in Mayfair, a daughter, Elena, 2 sons, Michael and Petrov, and a new English barrister husband, Harry. Annie was once her beloved personal shopper, but over the years they've become close friends. Svetlana owns Perfect Dress and films regular financial advice slots on How to Be Fabulous. Elena, Svetlana's secret love child, who was estranged from her mother previously. She is now all grown up into an extremely determined and ambitious young woman. She helps to run Perfect Dress in New York. Dinah, Annie's younger sister. Dreamy, creative, artsy Dinah, who is always lovely to everyone. She gave up her day job to become nanny to Minette and Max during Annie's busy TV filming schedule. She's married to architect Brian and they have a daughter, Billy. Connor, Annie's oldest cashmere sweater of a best friend, once her late husband's bestie. He's an actor who has enjoyed TV, film and now West End theatre fame. He's single, yet again, and more than a touch diva-ish, but he's family. Fern, Annie's mother, a retired podiatrist who brought up her daughters as a hard-working single mum and instilled the love of a quality piece of clothing. She lives outside London now and suffers some health issues, including early-stage dementia. She's well looked after by her daughters and carers. October the 1st. Save the date. My darlings, we would love to give you an exclusive early opportunity to buy this season's must-have, an invitation to Svetlana Wisniewski-Roscoff's Garden Fashion Gala, a fashion show and auction of dazzling vintage, one-off and pre-loved designer clothes and accessories. All proceeds will go to a wonderful charity, Thrive Dressing. Our confirmed special guest, TV star and fashion guru Annie Valentine, more to be announced. When? Friday, October the 1st from 7 p.m. till 11 p.m. Where? The Marquee, Balfour Gardens, Mayfair W1. Dress. Something fabulous. Buy your ticket and register to bid on the night. www.gardenfashiongala.com/tickets. If you have designer items to donate to this fabulous event, gardenfashiongala.com/donate will explain how. Stay fabulous, friends. Prologue. Annie manhandled the awkward cardboard boxes into the basement storeroom, then put her own heavy tote bag into the doorway to hold it ajar, just in case the unreliable timer light decided to randomly click off. Then she lifted the boxes one by one onto their correct places on the shelf, and, well, now that she was down here, would it be so terrible to look for the box labelled Handbag Stall, Box 7? Just a little peek in there wouldn't hurt anyone, she reasoned. She just wanted to check. She told herself that all was well and everything was safe. Spotting the box, she took it down and opened the flaps. Oh, and there it was, the absolutely immaculate, hardly ever been out of the house Devon bag, so impeccably made by that very exclusive label, the Row. The bag was smooth, tan, shiny as a conker, with a heavy gold zip that screamed quality, and that unmistakable bold shape. She ran her hands over the satiny calfskin surface. She had tried to resist the lure of this bag, but it was no good. She could recognize the signs. She had fallen in deepest, dreamiest handbag love. It was too late. She was already planning outfits around this treasure, matching the shoes and boots from her wardrobe that would best coordinate with it, and those deep shoulder handles. The bag would look gorgeous slung over a camel coat, a red coat, a navy coat. It would look so smart placed in the crook of her elbow, too. It was perfect. The handbag classic. The one and only. Brand new, these bags sold for an impossible amount, around the £4,000 mark. Imagine, £4,000 for a hard-working leather tan tote. £4,000! When a perfectly nice and serviceable one could be had for £100. But she slid open the zip to look at the pristine suede lining. It was gorgeous, heart-stopping. She knew herself very well. She knew how often she had been involved in a handbag love affair. A bag that promised to make you laugh, cry, and change your life. She had thought that she was too sensible and grown up now for this kind of nonsense. But here she was, all over again, with her hands on a bag that she wanted so much, too much, to make her own. "What should we price it at?" Paula had asked her, and for a moment Annie had been sorely tempted to say £400, whip out her card and take the bag off the market there and then. But she was one of the charity show's organisers. She was here to make sure that every single item so generously donated reached its true value to make as much for the good causes as possible. So, Annie had taken a deep breath and told Paula, "This is a very valuable bag, in pristine condition. It needs to be £2,000 at least, maybe more if we think we can get away with it." So Paula had made the label, tagged it around the bag where Annie saw it now with the figures £2,400. Way, way too much for her to be dropping on bags, that was for sure. She took it fully out of the box, deciding she would just slip it over her shoulder to see how it felt before putting it back in, folding the flaps, saying a mental goodbye and trying to forget about it forever. So, the bag was out, over her shoulder, cradled lovingly between her side and her arm, just for a moment, just to let her appreciate its weight, smoothness, and gorgeous craftsmanship. And then, That's when the erratic timer light jumped out of its socket, throwing the storage room into darkness, and some internal draft, maybe caused by the lift pulling up higher into the building, caused the door to move, pushing her tote bag out of the way and slamming shut, with the automatic click of the Yale lock. Oh, for crying out loud. She was in pitch blackness, without the slightest glimpse of light. Complete blackness, with boxes on the floor, bags on the floor, quite the obstacle course between her and the door. And there was a £2,400 bag over her arm. Even if she wanted to put it back before she did anything else, she would have no clue how to find the right box. She could feel her breath growing shallow in her chest. Someone's going to come in and find me and think I was trying to steal this bag. From a charity. A £2,400 bag. This is going to look terrible. I'm going to be kicked off the fashion show and kicked off the TV, and I'll never be able to show my face in public again. For a bag. A handbag. Although there was no denying the exceptional quality of the leather or the stitching. Annie! She had to get her head together here. She had to calm the heck down and get out of this room before anyone else appeared and jump to any wrong conclusions. The light was just on the other side of the door, she reminded herself. Yes, the door was locked, but the knob to open the lock was on her side. She just had to find the door in all this blackness, open the lock, turn the light back on, and everything would be fine. Okay, so where exactly was the door? She turned herself around and very slowly, very gingerly, stepped forward, trying not to step or trip on anything that could be in her path. She inched forward, hands out in front of her, and inched, but there was nothing, absolutely nothing ahead. She stretched her arms out further and felt her toe hit a box. She felt her way carefully around the box and forward a little further, arms outstretched. Don't fall, she told herself. Falling would not help in any way at all. What if she injured her ankle and couldn't get up, or hit her head and... Not only would she lie here all night undiscovered, but the show might be jeopardised, and then her name would be trashed by hundreds of London's most influential fashionistas. Annie! She told herself off. She was spiralling. She had to get a grip. She could feel something in front of her now. But it wasn't the smooth plaster of the wall, or the reassuring wood grain of the door. No, this felt like cardboard, and now she could feel the metal of the shelves. She'd walked into one of the shelving units that lined the room. But that was okay, she told herself. If she followed the shelving unit all the way round the room, she would eventually get to the door, wouldn't she? But follow it to the left or to the right? She tried to picture herself in the room. Where was she exactly? She couldn't tell. Never mind, she told herself. If I follow the shelving in one direction, I will get to the door. That's logical, completely logical. So she inched along, keeping her fingertips on the cardboard and trying to steer clear of all the boxes, bags, and now something metal underfoot. Totally logical. Just keep going, she told herself. But the room felt enormous, and she had completely lost her bearings. It was so dark. Even straining her eyes, she could see nothing in front. Utter darkness. Very unhelpfully, she now started thinking about Agent Starling in Silence of the Lambs, groping her way around that hideous basement while the murderer stalked her in night vision goggles. Annie, she told herself off again. That was definitely not helping. Good grief! How did she get herself into these ridiculous situations time after time? If I got myself in, I can get myself out, she said out loud to give herself a little boost. She tucked the bag more tightly under her arm, running her fingers over its smooth surface. We're a team now, she told the bag. I know you can help me to keep it together. You're a totally together kind of handbag. And when we get out of here, even if it's tomorrow, I will just pony up the cash and make you mine. Chapter 1. Annie for cocktails. Mid-blue silk blouse with deep cuffs and neck bow. Flared blue velvet trousers. Long purple faux fur coat. Pink patent leather handbag. Black suede ankle boots. Babes, I'm here. I made it. Weaving past tables, chairs, and the late afternoon crowd, Annie, laden down with handbags, tote bags, and shopping, hurried across the beautiful antique wooden floor of the cosy London bar to where one of her oldest and dearest friends, Connor McCabe, was sitting waiting for her at their favourite corner booth. And bless him, there were 2 elegant cocktails on the table because he'd already got the drinks order in. He looked up, ran a hand over his luscious blue-black Highland warrior-style locks, and gave her something of a glare. His drink was already 2/3 of the way down, she saw now. I'm sorry, I didn't think I was so late." A quick glance at her wristwatch told her she was 17 minutes late, which was a bit of a social faux pas, especially when you were meeting one of London's— no, make that one of the UK's big-name, actually recognisable stars of stage and screen, even if you had known him for decades and way, way before he was famous. She kissed him on his chiselled cheekbone, hustled herself into the banquette opposite his, then picked up her drink, chinked it against his, and said, just before she took a long mouthful, "Nobody puts McCabe in the corner." The dirty dancing joke did at least make him smile. "I am grovellingly sorry I'm so late," she said. Once a second sip of the drink had gone down and she was ready to speak again. "And this is delicious. So fruity and packs the kind of punch I'm sure you'd like to give me right now." "Thank you. Our favourite barman, Jose, is in today, and he made it especially for us. He's named it the TV Dark and Stormy." "Very clever." She took another sip. "We're both on TV. You're the dark one, and I'm obviously Stormy." This made him smile again. "Ah, the legendary Connor McCabe smile. All is right again with the world when I am basking in the Connor McCabe smile, made famous on TV, and now available all over the West End. But I knew you first. Never forget that. I have the photos you never want published." She teased, because laughter, jokes, and plenty of teasing was the bedrock of their long and happy friendship, which had deepened in the very darkest of times, following the death many years ago now of Annie's first husband, who had also been Connor's best friend. "Why are you so late?" he asked, not quite ready to let her off easily. "I'm 17 minutes late," she protested. "It's not like I'm 40 minutes late or had forgotten me altogether, which, can I remind you, has happened before?" "No, don't remind me." Annie turned to the 2 handbags, one large, one small, the umbrella and the large shopping totes, which she dumped onto the rest of the banquette. In fact, her multiple bag-carrying habit was part of the reason why Connor now always snagged the booth for them, instead of a showy table in the centre of the room. "You didn't speak to me for about 2 months after I forgot our date. I seem to remember I had to lure you back with cashmere," she teased. "I should think so too. And four-ply, nothing nasty from the back of an Amazon van," Connor retorted. "As if you would wear anything from the back of an Amazon van. I am late because of so many reasons. It's the 1st of September, and September is a killer month in our household, let me tell you." Annie leaned back in the booth, took another fortifying sip, and tried to corral all that was happening this month into some sort of sensible list in her mind. "Ah," Connor nodded. "Ed goes back to school, you were on a TV shooting schedule, and what about the twins?" Connor asked, arching one of those devastatingly attractive eyebrows. "The twins have started kindergarten with mixed results," was Annie's take on this latest stage for her 4-year-olds. "Minette, very excited. Max, crying to break my heart every morning." Poor Max. He's obviously a nonconformist who loves his mummy. "Yes, And then Lauren is still in New York. She updated Connor about her eldest daughter. And that seems to be going okay, thank goodness. And Owen, even as Annie prepared to say these words about her now 18-year-old son, she couldn't really believe they were true. Owen is about to start university in Glasgow. Oh, yes, of course he is. Away to bonny Scotland, Connor added in his best version of a Scottish accent, even though he grew up in Lancashire. How is his wee mammy going to cope with that? Oh, it'll be fine, she said to try and convince herself. Owen, he'll make friends anywhere, and he'll be up and down on the train, and it's only a 7-hour drive. She'd Googled it, but that was probably only if you went in the middle of the night and didn't stop even for a wee. In truth, she couldn't really think about it too much. Wasn't it bad enough that Lauren was in New York? Now Owen was going to Scotland. He would be fine, but Annie wasn't so sure about herself. Owen was her little boy, and the spirit of fun at home, and the family member who made everything light-hearted. Honestly, what was the matter with her children? All her other friends seemed to have offspring who were perfectly happy to stay in London. And why not? It was one of the greatest cities in the world. Her children would both be back, she told herself quickly. They were having an adventure. They were travelling and experiencing other places, other cultures, and then they would definitely be back. And what about you, Connor babes? She took another bolstering sip of that outrageously strong cocktail, sure she was breathing out flammable fumes by now. What is happening with you? No, not so fast, Annie. I need to hear about the new series of How to Be Fabulous and how it's shaping up. Her reply to this was to sigh and say, Exhausting, babes, exhausting. You know how it is. Whatever you've got to give. And TV will only ever take. By the time we wrap, I'll be ready to lie flat on my back, preferably in a soothing Italian spa, but more realistically on the floor of my bedroom, barricaded shut against the twins in the middle of a rampaging row. But instead, what have I agreed to do as soon as shooting stops? I have agreed to help Svetlana put on a huge, glitzy charity fashion show. Whoa, that sounds ambitious. It would be fair to say that Connor looked an exact mixture of astonished and intrigued. A glitzy charity fashion show? He asked, with your Mayfair multi-millionaire-esque friend at the helm. So when is this? And where? And who is coming? Details, Annie, that's what I want to hear. Honestly, Annie was a little surprised that she hadn't already told Connor about the Garden Fashion Gala. This show had been in her head for months on end, and surely she must have mentioned it to him. But then, when she thought about it, the idea for the show had only come about early in the summer when Svetlana had decided to purge her vast designer wardrobe and sell a significant proportion to raise money for charity by hosting a lavish garden party fashion show and auction. So really, it had only been a few months of planning and prepping, and in that time there had only been 1 or 2 get-togethers with Connor, and they had involved the whole family, so maybe she hadn't mentioned it to him. It's on October the 1st, in exactly 1 month's time, she told him, a little startled at the thought. 1 month, when there was still so much to do. And when do you finish filming? Connor asked. Due to wrap in 15 days, but let's be realistic and say 17 days. Connor pulled a face. Oh, he sympathised. That's going to be tight. No kidding, Annie replied. No lolling about in Italian spas for me. Definitely not. And your son is heading to uni, don't forget, and your baby is crying about kindergarten, and I've not even asked how the long-suffering Ed is doing. Ed who? She joked. Yes, I do occasionally run into my husband in the kitchen. He gets up extra early to make me a coffee before I head out of the door to TV land. He's a very nice man. You are too lucky. This, she had to agree, was very true. She and Ed worked as a team to hold it all together. Nothing about her busy, stressful life would make sense if he wasn't by her side helping her. She needed to remember to take some time now and then to tell him how much she appreciated him. "No sign of a very nice man in your life, then?" she asked Connor. He shook his head before adding cheerfully, "But there is the joy of still searching." "True. Annie, you have got people helping you with this show, haven't you?" he asked now, sounding a little concerned. "Svetlana must have minions." "She does, and this fabulous woman Paula, who used to work with me at the store, is our right-hand showrunner. But ultimately this is our show, our big moment, our chance to pull off something impressive, so—" "The buck stops with you," Connor said, understanding perfectly. "And how is it coming on?" Annie was torn for a moment or two between being relentlessly optimistic or being honest. "I'm going to get in another round of these bad boys before I can tell you," she admitted, and went off in search of Jose, the magical mixologist. When a second round of TV darkened stormies were in front of them, she felt she could properly offload some of the heavy weight of angst she'd been carrying around with her over the last few days. "Spill," Connor commanded after chinking glasses with her once again. "The caterers are booked, the flowers, same, drinks, same, glasses, chairs, waiting staff, coat check, all done. Marquee likewise," she said. "Donations are coming in, beautiful clothes, amazing accessories, and hard cash, so that's all good. The starry guest list, both high society and fashion, has been compiled, the tickets designed. But—" Connor leaned towards her, sensing there was a major speed bump on the fashion show road that Annie was hurtling towards. "I'm definitely sensing a but," he said, then added, "And this is no time to make jokes about my butt-sensing skills." "Very funny," Annie said immediately, but she could feel her tension headache easing. Somehow, nothing was ever so bad when you shared it with Connor. He'd lived through so many of her crises, major and minor, that he would definitely be able to remind her that maybe she could pull through this one too. "I've not printed the invitations and sent them yet because well, maybe I'm just being paranoid." "I doubt it," Connor said. "Because, well, I just have a funny feeling that something isn't quite right. Something hasn't been done. Something is going to derail the whole project." Annie shook her head. "I can't explain it. It's probably just nerves. But I can't bring myself to print and send invitations with my name on them as the guest star to all these important people, especially the very important fashion people, until I know that it's going to be a brilliant show, that it is definitely going to happen. I mean, I may not work in TV forever. In fact, I know I won't work in TV forever. I need to make more fashion world connections. I need to think about my next move," she tried to explain. "So this show needs to be amazing and put me on the fashion map, not turn into a disaster that makes me a laughing stock forever." "This doesn't sound good, Annie," Connor sympathized. "So what are you going to do?" Chapter 2. Thea at hand. Slouchy navy cashmere v-neck, silver taffeta pencil skirt, navy sueded high-heeled pumps, silver chain bracelet, silver tassel earrings. It was 6 p.m. when she finally hugged Connor goodbye because they both had places to be, other people to see, and anyway, they had downloaded all their current issues and given each other thoroughly good advice. "Isn't it amazing how much easier it is to solve other people's problems?" Annie had laughed, and she promised to follow at least some of the good advice that Connor had offered. Now she was back on the busy pavement in her favourite part of central London, still basking in the glow of warm early evening sun at the very tail of the summer. She walked with a brisk step on heels a little higher than they should be for pavement walking, followed by a long journey on the tube. But it was her thing, her mantra, her raison d'être even, if you were going to go all French about it, to be always a little overdressed. Interesting things happened when you wore interesting clothes, and that was a fact. Hadn't the late, great Dame Vivienne Westwood herself decreed that you have a more interesting life if you wear impressive clothes? And Annie had seen these words in action, both for herself and for the hundreds, maybe thousands of people she had shopped for, styled, made over during her long career as a personal shopper, now a TV fashion guru, and in future, those words seemed to get a little caught in her mind. In future. Realistically, she wasn't going to be on TV forever, was she? Realistically, every season felt as if it was in danger of being the last, because the show might not be recommissioned, or she might be replaced by someone much more excitingly new and nubile. This was fashion, after all. If she was going to live by the sell-by date, then she would also die by the sell-by date. And then what? Increasingly, she was giving this a lot more thought. She had ideas, of course. Become a much more private, exclusive personal stylist, maybe to a starry list of clientele. Or set up her own channel online, giving advice, selling lovely things, counting on the continued loyalty of her very own fans. But she also loved the idea of being just a little closer to the real beating heart of fashion. What did she mean, exactly? She didn't even know. She was just a little obsessed with the idea of fashion shows and new collections, advising designers on whether their ideas were amazing or too off the wall. Being able to have a say in what was in, what was out, knowing exactly what colour was going to be all over the socials 18 months from today. She wanted to be much more a part of the fashion industry. That was the truth. TV was not lighting her creative fires. The TV show was about looking for nice clothes on the high street and wearable, separates and affordable, practical things. And sometimes she could hardly remember that she used to pore over Vogue as a teenager and had taken herself off to art school because nothing else would do. And in truth, even though she wasn't quite sure what it should be, she wanted a proper career. Her husband Ed had been at his school for many years. He had risen up the ranks to become head of department. Maybe one day in the future he'd be deputy head or even head, or move to another illustrious London establishment. Whereas all that faced her at the end of many successful TV years was a boot in the bum and a "sorry, no thanks, we found a foxier number." To add insult to injury, while Ed had paid holidays, sick pay, a pension plan, Annie swung from short-term contract to short-term contract, always beset with the worry that the next contract would be her last, and she wasn't going to get renewed. In her time between TV contracts, she scrabbled about working for Svetlana's dress company, personal shopping for some long-term clients, buying and selling on Vinted, and scrambling to pay her share of the bills. This had once been exciting and filled with potential and ultra-flexible for her life as a mother of young children. But Annie had lately come to realize that she was growing weary of all the insecurity and the pressure of having to sing for her supper every moment of the day. She wanted something more solid. She wanted to be part of something bigger and more reliable. But she seriously doubted this was a problem that she was going to solve today. So, she let her tense shoulders drop a little, despite the weight of the many bags. Then she deliberately smoothed out the worried crease that she knew was settling in between her eyebrows, and she tried to look around, at the people, at the lavish shop windows and enjoy the fact that she was strolling in beautiful shoes and a well-loved summer dress through the beating heart of fashionable London. She admired a tall woman with flame-red hair strolling past in an elegant charcoal linen jumpsuit. Copper and charcoal. Gorgeous. And there was a Serena Williams look-alike, artful braids caught up in an impressive bun, rocking the kind of shocking pink satin blouse that had launched designer Elsa Schiaparelli to fame almost 100 years ago. Annie was just intending to glance at the graceful, wooden-framed windows of the Ralph Lauren shop. You know, just turn the head, glance, nod with approval, and keep on walking, but oh no, that was catching her eye. She was going to have to stop and walk over and take a closer look at that completely stunning pale gold dress. Just 1 month from now, she was supposed to be a major part of what she still hoped could be the charity fashion event of the season. It had occurred to Annie more than once that she needed something new and fabulous and of this exact moment in fashion to wear. And this dress. It was silky, slippy, fluid, and drapey. It had a very flattering V-shaped neckline, a twisted front, and, oh, she loved, adored, the built-in cape effect. She could twirl and swish, and she would have her very own almost-to-the-elbow cape. Gold with a cape. She could be the show's very own superheroine if she had a gold-caped dress. To be honest, she did already feel like the show's heroine. All those mountains of clothes she had sorted from Svetlana's wardrobe, persuading her what to sell, what to have retailored, what to donate. Then all the clothes she had sourced from past clients, friends, pretty much everyone she'd ever known. She'd also lined up models, brought Paula on board, done the guest list, written commentaries for the compares to read out. She loved to be a fixer, but this show? She was just about all fixed out, and there was still 1 whole month to go. So much could still go wrong. That's what her gut was telling her. That was the endless, niggling feeling. Ideally, the show still needed some show-stopping items of clothing. Ideally, another 3 professional models would also make a huge difference. Ideally, there were a lot of other things required between now and October the 1st to make sure that this really would be the hottest ticket in town. And, never mind, she was going in to see about that dress. Because a gold dress with a cape would definitely make everything better for Annie. This she did know. In the changing room, she took a long, appraising look at herself in the dress. It was very, very good, this dress. The twisted design that let fabric drape very flatteringly over offending lumps and bumps at the front. If you'd had 4 children, despised the gym, and really, if it came to a choice between svelte and pastry, would go pastry every time, you did appreciate some flattering drape. And she had the perfect shoes and bag to go with this beautiful friend, no doubt about it. The cape! She gave a little swish and a swirl in front of the mirror. She would go out and talk it over with the shop assistant. In a store like this, the shop assistant would want to be consulted. And Annie would enjoy talking about shoes, bags, and whether to wear tights and Spanx or not with a trusted expert. From her own days as a personal shopper in the store, she knew that it could be a long and quiet day in a high-end shop. So when a customer was trying and buying, then most assistants loved an in-depth chat. "What do you think?" she asked, as she swished open the curtain and stepped out of the changing space. "Absolutely loving that on you," the assistant gushed. In fact, her face split into a smile, and she actually clapped her hands together. "It's so beautiful, so flattering, and I love the cape," Annie told her. "I'm Annie, by the way." "I'm Thea. Nice to meet you, and we all love this dress." As soon as we put it in the window, we've had so many people come in and ask to try it on. It's so statementy, but flattering, and so comfortable to wear. I have bright pink strappy heels, so that's what I'm thinking, Annie confided. And bag choices, another colour, gold, or maybe something darker. I can suggest some options, just to hold, just to get you thinking, Thea offered. So, Annie followed her out of the changing area and towards the handbag collection. They were comparing clutches when the store's front door opened, and Annie was sure she could feel a hush descend. Seeing Thea look up and remain fixed on whoever had just come into the shop, Annie also turned to have a look. And there was no mistaking the crisp, jet-black pageboy haircut, the huge gold-framed glasses with a yellow tint, and the severe black trouser suit. This was one of the most famous women in fashion, Paige P., editor-in-chief of Fashion Bible's Style Setter, the international magazine available in 35 languages, Style Setter Daily, the Fashion Trade daily newsletter, and not forgetting Style Setter Publishing, which produced 10 to die for fashion-themed coffee table books on July the 1st and December the 1st every year. You couldn't buy them in the shops or anywhere mainstream. You had to apply for a place on the waiting list for these limited edition babies. Annie was the proud owner of 6 of them, and at £150 a copy, that was no small investment. Paige P. had been at the top of her game for well over a decade now because she was so influential, so authoritative. When she said something was over, it was dead and buried. Where she pointed, everyone flocked to follow. Many conflicting questions were rushing into Annie's mind at the sight of this most fashionable of all the fashionistas. First of all, what was she doing in Ralph Lauren? That seemed way too mainstream for Paige P., who was known to champion tiny and completely unique labels. Could Annie dare approach her? Maybe to ask about this dress. Was that a good idea? Which bag should she carry with it? No, don't be ridiculous. Or what about, could she send her an invite to the Garden Fashion Gala? Had they already sent one? Had they dared to include Paige P. on their invitation list? And then came the completely outrageous thought. Could Annie somehow work for Style Setter? Would that give her the influence, the fashion access, the kind of status that she had recently begun to hanker after? But instead, despite all of these ideas rushing around her head, Annie remained frozen to the spot, unable to think of even one sensible thing to say. Paige P. strode towards the nearest assistant. "I've come to collect my order," was all she needed to say, to send the assistant flying towards the back of the shop. Then, Paige P. was left standing, waiting, and she inevitably cast her eyes around to take in what was on display and what was happening in the store today. Her eyes fell on Annie and stayed on Annie. If Annie had felt frozen before, now she was transformed into a statue. A bunny in a golden dress in front of Paige P.'s highly critical headlight glare. The silence seemed to grow, enlarge, and draw in every other person on the shop floor until Annie couldn't stand it any more and blurted, "It's the cape. That's what makes it for me." More silence. Annie was transported back to school, to being under the eyes of the glacial headmistress and wishing she could dissolve, disappear. Paige P. continued to look at her. But lo and behold, the bold wine-red lips were parting, and out came Paige P.'s words of wisdom. "Yes," she said. "Shades of Lacroix, unusually bling for Ralph." Annie felt frozen to the spot once again. Was that good? Bad? Was Lacroix in or out? Should Ralph be doing bling or not? Like the ancient oracle of Delphi, Page P had spoken, and it was up to the world to try to decipher her meaning. "Your order, madam." An older woman who was obviously the senior manager approached Page P with 2 bulging carrier bags. In a bid to stop staring, Annie turned back to Thea and wordlessly took the clutch from her hands. Dared she walk over to the mirror to gauge the effect? Or would that be rude? Oh, for goodness sake, this woman wasn't the queen. But then again, she was definitely fashion royalty. Not that bag. Annie turned in some horror, because Page P had spoken once again, and this was clearly directed at her. In fact, Page P was approaching the handbag display now. Annie could see the look of fear on Thea's face, no doubt terrified she was going to be in trouble for even suggesting this choice. "All a bit pedestrian," was Page P's verdict as she cast her eyes, still behind those flashy yellow-tinted frames, over the selection. "That one, maybe." She pointed. "But ideally," she looked Annie up and down, "something very shiny from Jacquemus, or snakeskin, vintage Jimmy Choo." Annie nodded mutely, once again feeling like a schoolgirl, but this time a schoolgirl with a hopeless crush. "I only come here for the cashmere," were Page P's final words, and with a turn of her heel, she was out of the door, into the waiting silver car, and with a discreet electric purr she was gone. Annie looked at herself in the mirror. The dress was perfect. She was buying it. Then, of course, she would go and hunt down the exact bag that Page P had specified, no question. But the first thing she would do, she scrambled inside her handbag for her phone, was make sure that Page P's people got a follow-up message from the woman in the caped gold dress in Ralph Lauren about her invitation to the Garden Fashion Gala. Chapter 3. Maria on duty. Pink linen blouse, starched and ironed, stretchy black trousers, black lace-up rubber-soled shoes, white cotton apron, starched and ironed. Annie stood on the steps outside Svetlana's highly polished Mayfair front door and waited for her bell ring to be answered. She took a moment to turn and look at the beautiful residence garden, which, in less than a month now, would be hosting what they both wanted to think of as the fashion event of the season. All summer long, Svetlana had been working with the residence committee and the gardeners to improve the space, and it was much greener, lusher, and more flower-studded than ever before. On the night of the show, there were plans for lanterns in the trees, a lit-up walkway to the marquee, and industrial quantities of fairy lights all around the sombre black railings. It was an additional expense, but everything was going to be set up the day before for a full dress rehearsal to make sure that the plans were going to come to life just as Svetlana and Annie had imagined. Annie glanced back at the door, at the luscious pot plants on either side of it, and at the blooming window boxes at each one of the antique windows on this 4-storied townhouse. Svetlana, who was quite insanely wealthy now, having made a series of spectacularly good marriages, divorces, and investments, had grown up in a tiny Ukrainian village, and some essence of being a country woman, of enjoying growing things, of needing plants, flowers, even vegetables to grow, remained. The door opened, and Svetlana's long-standing maid and housekeeper Maria opened it, crisp dress, white apron, and broad smile in place. "Welcome, Miss Valentina," Maria said, stepping back and extending an arm to show Annie into the house. "Madame would like you to come upstairs to the smaller sitting room." "Thank you, Maria. And how are you?" Annie asked, as she followed Maria through the hall and up the staircase, taking in the beautiful lights, paintings, family portraits, gorgeous wallpaper, and all the elegant touches that made Svetlana's house feel somewhere between a palace, a luxury hotel, and a real home. "I am very well, thank you, Miss Valentina. The boys will be here next weekend, so I am excited to see them again." "Of course. I bet they can't wait to be home to be spoiled by you." The boys were Svetlana's sons, Petrov and Michael, at boarding school in Scotland now, which was a little heartache for Maria, who had cared for them ever since they were babies. Maria tapped on the sitting room door, and a cheerful "Come in" rang out from the other side. She held the door open, and Annie walked into the beautiful room, all gleaming cream and gold, with properly impressive art on the walls. There, at an antique table at the window, was Svetlana, the woman who had once been Annie's favourite customer in the personal shopping suite, but who now was both a business partner and a real friend. "Hello, my darling Anna," Svetlana gushed as she stood up and they approached one another for an affectionate hug. "Let me just admire the Svetlana does casual look," Annie said with a smile, taking in the pale beige cashmere jogging bottoms and hoodie, accessorized with ropes of gold jewellery, huge diamond and pearl earrings, and the tousled blonde bob that Svetlana was currently sporting. "Maria will bring us some coffee and we will sit down on my table here and talk about the show and everything we still need to do," Svetlana instructed. "Perfect." Annie took herself over to the table, and still with half a mind on the sumptuous room, the paintings, the flowers, the delicious scents in the air from candles, from Svetlana herself, then she pulled her laptop from her bag, opened it up, and focused on the business of today. "First, we go through the checklist, yes? Then we talk about what still needs to be organized," was Svetlana's suggestion. "Checklist coming right up," Annie told her, clicking through to the relevant file. She read through their long list. The marquee was booked, the lighting, too, the catering, the flowers, the tables and chairs. There was a DJ and a draft playlist. 3 models, 2 semi-professional and 1 professional, an old friend of Annie's, were confirmed. Ideally, 3 more still needed to be sourced. "I'll look after that," Annie told Svetlana. "I have some ideas." She was thinking about Ed's school and wondering if she could maybe entice some of the athletic team's girls to enjoy a night of fashion glamour. "The other special guests, including our compere," Annie read out from her list. "You were going to find us a starry presence to be the main host. It's 3 weeks and 6 days, my love. Is there any word?" "Oh, yes." Svetlana fixed Annie with the megawatt smile created by probably the finest dentists in the world and framed by soft, pillowy, perfectly lipstick lips.